When I was a child, my bed was a place to escape to for me. I used to get in the bed and pull the covers up over my head and hide. And sometimes I would sneak my father's flashlight upstairs and I'd read little storybooks under the covers. And then I remember sometimes I got chills, so I'd go downstairs and I'd fill a shot glass full of red wine, and then I'd sneak it out and I'd drink it underneath the covers. It usually burnt my chest because it was so strong. But mostly it felt real warm and real good.
It's funny when I think about it now because there seems to be so much distance at this point. I can remember when I went to their house for dinner to talk to them about my illness, and we were sitting at the table, and I was at one end and Pop was at the other. And I began talking about it, and I remember at one point there was a little bit of silence, and my mom turned around and started to talk about a friend of hers taking a sculpting class and another friend of hers having weeding her garden. And I began to wonder whether I was speaking a foreign language or something. I couldn't quite understand why I wasn't getting a response to any of the things that I was saying. Then as sort of a last resort, I remember going to my brother's and sitting on the edge of his bed and looking him dead in the eyes and telling him exactly what was going on. He just kind of, take a stiff upper lip and give me a smack on the back and say everything would be okay. I've gotten real close to an old friend of mine. Her name's Robin. She's been living in Rome for a couple of years, and she just got back to the States about 4 months ago. So we started out by spending real long days together. Sometimes we would take long walks, and sometimes we would cook meals for each other. Sometimes we'd work in the dark room. Often we work in the dark room for real long hours. This one particular day, we took a picnic lunch and a bottle of wine out to this park. It's not too far from here, and it's kind of like an arboretum. It's one of Rob's favorite places. That day, it was like the excitement of a new romance for me. I never felt so full of joy or had so many laughs. And I remember thinking that I wish I had gotten closer to Robin close like that when we were friends before. Then one night about a week or a week and a half later, I started to talk about me dying. I decided that it was time to do that. But Robin was sort of very taken back by that. But I continued to talk about it anyway because I thought that it was very necessary to kind of confront this. And I remember Robin started to cry. I remember I sat there and I looked over at her and she kind of looked, she was 5 years old and had her head down. I walked over to her and kind of knelt right in front of her and she reached out to me. So I stopped talking and we just held each other there for a very long time. See, after months of isolation, it felt so wonderful for me to be able to embrace like that and be close. I've always been very cautious with my feelings and really concerned about commitment and the long run of things. About a lot of things that kind of seem absurd to me now. I don't know, I guess that when you've got a very short time, all the junk thoughts and the junk feelings start getting weeded out. You just get rid of them. They're kind of unnecessary. I think that I've realized something very important, and that is that the only thing that there is left to do with the rest of my time is to get real close to the people that I've known. I mean, that's just all there is. Sometimes I'm so naive, I amaze myself. I thought that I had everything figured out. Like, all I had to do was to be true to myself and not be what other people wanted me to be. I don't know, I realize now that the only problem with that is that there are at least a million things that I can be or that I already am. I can't pin it down. I can't pin down who I am or who I can be. What occurs to me is that ever since I found out I was dying, I started to do all of these things to try to find a way to handle it. I realize now all that did was really serve to confuse me more than anything else. I mean, I'm alone. No matter what it is that I figure out in my own head or come up with as my own meaning, it doesn't ultimately make any difference. I wonder whether we really can get close to other people. This guy, Greg, that I was living with for a while, he left right after he found out that I was dying. I guess he couldn't handle it. Well, I was bitter initially, but I understand a lot better now. We weren't really that close anyway. My parents, they just kind of pretend like nothing's really the matter, you know. I tried talking to my mother several times, but she just keeps talking about this trip to Jamaica, like the only thing I really need is sunshine. My friends, they don't seem to come around as much anymore. I don't know, maybe it's my problem and not theirs. You know, but then I begin to think that I must be crazy or something, because I've been alone before. I've been alone plenty of times. But I've just never felt this isolated. I mean, not quite like this. I kind of feel like there's this wall around me or something. I don't know, it's like the people that I know have somehow become like an audience. And it feels to me sometimes like I'm in a cage, you know, and like it's a cage that they've constructed. I think that people are generally very put off by death, but I do still think that they find a perverse pleasure in it. I can remember ever since I was a little kid, I was always really shocked and horrified by people who would sort of run to accidents in which they knew people were killed, or they were kind of drawn to disasters. I just never understood that. I don't know, maybe fitting into this film would be to actually see me die right on the screen. The camera could kind of zoom in on a real close-up on my clammy skin and my gray lips. You know, it feels like the people that I know are a lot like this audience that's going to see the film. Sort of get to observe me from a distance, a very comfortable distance. And I don't know who it is I'm talking to. I don't know. I don't know what else to say except that that's kind of a disturbing feeling.
And I woke up this morning about 4 o'clock. The pains were pretty unbearable. So I got up and I got myself a glass of water and took some pain pills. And that helped. After
about 3 or 4 hours, the pains let up. I've been sitting here for about 10 hours, and I don't want to do anything or go anywhere today, and I don't want to see anyone necessarily. But I left the film crew in today because I wanted to say something. Wanted to say that nothing works. That the painkillers don't work. And that getting close to people doesn't work. All my escape routes have pretty much been shut off. And I realize that you can't just change gears and live a new life. When things got to be too painful, they kind of soured with me and Robin. And I realize now that you can only get so close, and then people get scared. Well, I think that the problems that I'm having don't have so much to do with my dying, really. I think that they're problems and anxieties that I've had all along. That doesn't mean that I think that death isn't a problem. Of course I think it's a problem. I think that it's an underlying problem with everybody, only I don't think that we admit it very often. I think that everything that we do is an attempt to overcome separation, or a response to separation. I'm getting kind of mental here. Well, I'm kind of confused and angry. Angry at myself, my family, and Robin and Greg. And I'm angry at death, too. I don't know what to do anymore. Every move I make seems to be absurd. And I have all these thoughts go through my head, one contradiction after another, just like the pain that goes through my body. And I realize that I have to figure this out on my own. And nobody can help me.
Why are you holding back? Because the cameras are here? You think you want to tell us more?
And it's hard to do this in front of everybody. And it makes me angry. Have everybody here watching. It makes me angry at my situation. And angry at death and angry at everybody. Because I don't know what to do anymore. What I've been doing just doesn't seem to mean very much now. And the thoughts that keep occurring over and over again all contradict each other. I don't understand them because they contradict each other. And they're a lot like the pain. Pain contradicts each other too. I feel stuck, like nothing I do can make a difference. And I wonder about the film. And if I'm sitting here just for the film, a lot of my feelings are contradictory to what I say here. I feel like I've withheld some things, some embarrassing things. And like, I said some things just for effect in the film. I wonder about that. And when I think about it, I don't know if I want to do the film anymore. I think I want to die alone. I want to die alone. This film is bullshit. Just like everything else. Please turn it off. I'm finished with it. Turn it off. I said turn it off. The film crew out, though, things very much started to change. Mostly because I stopped thinking and I just sat. While I was sitting here, it kept coming back to me again and again. And it's a story about a man being chased by a tiger. The tiger chases the man for about 2 miles. Until he comes to the edge of a cliff, and there isn't any place for him to go. So he looks around, and he notices that there's a grapevine attached to the cliff. So he jumps off, and he grabs a hold of the grapevine. And the drop isn't very far. It's about 15 feet. So he looks down, and he notices that there are 2 tigers down below, and they're just there waiting for him to jump. So then he looks up, and he sees that right where the grapevine is attached to the cliff, there are these 2 mice gnawing at it. And then he looks around, and he notices that there are all these grapes. So he starts picking them and eating them, picking them and eating them. I think I'd like to end the film with that story. The only thing that I can say about it is, ever since it's taken root, things have started to change. My death seems insignificant.
After November, Laura refused to let us film her. And talking with her weeks later, I sensed that her transformation was genuine. I asked again if we could film her. Laura refused, but after the film was completed, she agreed to an on-camera interview to talk about the film.
One of the things that pleased me a great deal about the film, one of the things that I was particularly concerned about while we were actually doing the filming, was that I had spent so much of the time soul-searching and possibly rambling. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm quite pleased about is the fact that you've managed to sort of condense all that and to put it together, to make a short film out of it. I think that you managed to give it some meaning, and you've made sense out of it. And I'm elated that you've been able to do that. I think, however, that the film that you've made is slightly, well, I think it's different. It's different from what I was experiencing.
So you were very much into the film and drawn to it, but didn't feel that it was you on the screen? Or it wasn't an accurate representation of what you went through?
It was an odd sensation, because I felt as though I was watching the film, and yet the film wasn't about me. It was almost as though I didn't think about myself as dying while I was watching it. Mm-hmm. There was also something about seeing myself in black and white. I don't know if I can describe it. It was almost as though it was unreal and abstract. Kind of like, yes, that detached feeling of that isn't really me up there, but this film that we've made has a life all of its own.
Well, you seem to have a resistance to talking about yourself and talking about dying. And I'm wondering whether there's something else going on here, or whether it is actually your feeling that it's all been said in the film.
It's funny that you should mention that. Because I had this sense while I was watching the film that there was something going on with me, like a very gut reaction or a bottom line to all of it. I don't know if it's something that I can express, but it has to do with a strong feeling in me of not wanting to be viewed as a specimen. I think that if the viewers even are to look at me sympathetically, that it's not good. It's not going to work.
I mean, the film won't work.
Yes, I don't think that the film will work.
Well, if you're not interested in the viewers looking at you sympathetically or having some sort of identification, I mean, what exactly are you looking for?
I think that it'll work if the people who are watching the film, I think that they'll really be watching it if the film is about them. It's funny, when I first read the script, I didn't think so. And then as I began to research and began to really identify with the character, with some of the specific situations, I do feel as though there are a lot of similarities between myself and the character. And I think that some of the ways in which Laura dealt with the process and the issue of death and dying, are similar ways in which I would deal with it. Yeah, so I don't think that she's real far removed from who I am, or from the ways in which I would deal with those things.